till end, right? Cool. So I know it has been a long day. You had a lot of sessions, but I hope this will be again a knowledge pack session, and it will be very interesting to implement if you haven't implemented such kind of things in your organization yet. Okay. So while outages and failures are inevitable, right? They are unavoidable, and we all know that, right? But what truly defines your resiliency is how we bounce back to that. So in this whole session today, we will be exploring different strategies which will help you to get that calm after the storm has occurred. So by storm over here, I mean after the disaster has already occurred. So we'll be talking about disaster recovery and its planning to recover from disaster recovery. So before we move forward, let me introduce myself. My name is Avani. I've been working with BookMyShow from past around 4 years now, and right now I'm working as a principal engineer there. So as I just mentioned, disasters are inevitable. So consider yourself in a scenario that you're working on a project and you have a really urgent deliverable to be delivered tomorrow. You have written a lot of code and everything, like you have drawn a lot of architecture diagram, flow diagrams, and you know that, okay, you have tested everything and everything is working as expected, and now you are off to your peaceful sleep. The next morning as you woke up, you realize that your laptop isn't opening at all, like it's crashed. So to avoid the situation, what could you have done better to just to avoid all these kinds of scenarios? Okay, it's your personal laptop. Sorry, backup, right? Anything else?
second laptop
Correct. Anything else?
प्रोजेक्ट को क्लाउड पे डिप्लॉय रखना लाइक अगर लैपटॉप का इशू भी रहता है तो वी कैन यूज सेकेंडरी डिवाइसेस फॉर एक्सेसिंग द प्रोजेक्ट ऑन क्लाउड
Correct.
कोर्स पेज में
Correct. So the situation you ended up yourself right now is similar to what an organization feels when your production systems are down or there are outages or your data centers go blank. It's not working. So this is what we are talking about today. This is what disaster recovery in a nutshell means. You've defined different kind of strategies. You define different kind of ways out to recover from whatever would be happening, right? So as you all correctly said that we could have backed it up, we could have some automated jobs that will be backing up your code somewhere on the cloud, right? And let's say if the same situation you are in, but then you could have just taken another external laptop and you could just sync your code from there and you could have started working again, right? So you knew, so at that point also you might have lost some data, like some code, but then you would not have lost all of your project that you have been working on, right? So you would be knowing that, okay, this is my recovery point and I need to work again from that point. So for example, if you have had some kind of automated jobs at the back end and you backed up your code till 8 p.m. and your laptop crashed at let's say 10 p.m., right? That at that point of time you would potentially lose that 2 hours of code, but then you know your recovery point, you have your recovery point till 8 p.m. and you again know that the time it would take for you to sync back your data into some another laptop would be, let's say, 10 to 15 minutes, just the time you will clone that majorly data, right? So you again know your recovery time, correct? So taking forward these two uh, key points, that is RPO and RTO, recovery point objective and recovery time objective. These are the key matrices when we talk about disasters and disaster recoveries. So recovery point objective, as I just mentioned, is the point which can be defined that how much maximum data you can lose in terms of time. Like it is measured in terms of time, and RTO is total time it took you to recover to come to that point where you can bounce back, you can work as expected. Like that point where you can, like the time taken to recover quickly. So that is how RTO and RPOs are defined whenever you are defining all those disaster recovery parameters. So now the question arises is, who defines these RTOs and RPOs? You know that, okay, you might take 10-15 minutes to bounce back, you can lose up to 10-15 hours or 1 hour or 2 hours of data, right? But then who defines these RTOs and RPOs? So for defining these RPOs and RPO, it is the business people of your organization who define. So for example, they might come up with that, okay, you can lose up to 1 hour data, 1 hour of your data, that would be your RPO. And the maximum time you can be down is of 15 minutes, that will be your RTO. Okay. Now, once you have defined all these matrices clearly, RTO and RPO, the IT team or the engineering teams works along with the business team to adhere to those policies or to adhere to those timelines that they have mentioned for RTO and RPO, along with the cost, because cost is again a important parameter whenever we are talking about disasters. So now laptop crashing is one kind of disaster we have seen, right? But there can be multiple disasters that can happen, that include natural disasters, security incidents, human related disruptions, or the technical failures. Natural disasters we all know, right? Floods, cyclones, fires, earthquakes, etc. When we talk about security incidents, it majorly include your data breaching, any kind of attacks, maybe ransomware attacks, or maybe like any kind of security breaches. When we talk about technical failures, it is power outages, your maybe your backup got corrupted, your data got corrupted, anything that relates to technicality where you're working. And human related disruptions majorly means, let's say you deployed a wrong code on production which led to some outage, any sort of configuration error, any accidental deletion of data. So all these are human related disruptions. Now we know that what is RTO, what is RPO, what are the disasters we are protecting ourselves from. Next question that arises in our mind is, how do we do that? What would be the strategy that we will be using to do all these things, right? So if you see here, there are the major strategies that we use is broadly classified into two parts. One is active passive and another is active active. When we talk about active passive, it is further divided into three major categories: backup restore, pilot light, and warm standby. Whereas for active active, we have multi-site. So if you see from left to right, there are two major parameters in this slide. One is RPO RTO, and the other one is cost. As we move from left to right, the cost is increasing with each strategy, right? First one is dollar, second is double dollar, third dollar, $3 and $4. Whereas if you see about RPO and RTO, they are comparatively decreasing. One is like the first one is in hours, second one is in tens of minutes, third one is in minutes, and fourth one is in real time, right? So let's see how it is decreasing and how the cost is increasing. So when we talk about backup and restore, what we generally do is we back up like whatever the important components that we have in our organization, we back up those components, maybe to some external device, S3 bucket, wherever you want to back up, and we restore them when once the event has occurred. By event I mean is whenever that disaster has occurred and we want to now restore our backup. So for example, in the example that I just shared, uh, the backup jobs that were backing your code onto some cloud, now you want to restore that. So that is backup and restore. The cost over here would be almost negligible because you are only using some external device or something to store your data. You are not running any of your additional infrastructure. So your cost will be very minimal. Whereas your RPO, RTO will be in hours depending on how much amount of data you are restoring. So it can go to hours, days also. Like if your data is really, really large, it can go till like 12 hours, 13 hours. Correct. As we move towards right to in the pilot light, what we do is we generally create kind of a landing zone. So whenever you are running an infrastructure, it includes multiple things. It will include your networks, your different components, yeah, multiple configuration. So what you do in pilot light is you have a landing zone created in which probably you will keep your all networks pre-configured. Your applications will be there, but it will be scaled down to zero. It will not be running. But whenever an event has occurred, it will just you can just scale up those applications or databases, whatever you need, and you can diverge your traffic to onto that DR site, disaster recovery site. So in this, the cost obviously will increase a bit because you are running an infrastructure, even if it is like scaled to zero. But then the basic cost of reserving that kind of infrastructure or networks will come, right? So your cost will increase, whereas your RTO, RPO will decrease because you'll save on time of setting up everything. You'll just need to scale up when the event has occurred, right? So again, when we move towards more right towards warm standby, in warm standby, what we do is we are always running, but with smaller capacity. That means that, for example, if you are running an instance which is of 16 core of CPU and 8 GB of memory, let's say, right? But in the DR side, you will be running on 2 core and 2 GB. So you are running on lower capacity, but then you are always running. So again, your cost will increase a bit than pilot light as well. But then your RPO and RTO will again reduce down to minutes, because even if your production system goes down, you can directly divert your traffic to the other DR site, right? Then in multi-site active setup is, it's kind of a parallel setup that we run along with production. Everything that is running on your production is getting replicated in your DR zone as well, which is real time. Majorly, when you do not have any constraint of downtime, it is better to use backup and restore. But for example, if you're running a healthcare industry, right, in that you cannot afford that downtime. So according to that, like according to your business use case, you probably might want to use multi-site active strategy. But then again, uh, the major trade-off for that is the cost thing, because cost will exponentially increase as we move from left to right. Now I think I'm like we are clear with these four strategies that we have, right? Now generally the organizations are pretty big, right? How do we define that out of four, which one to go for, right? So choosing the right strategy is again what you need to really think about. Here are some key parameters that you can consider while choosing the correct DR strategy. I'll just walk through one by one to each of these. First one is identify critical applications and services. So in that, what we do is you first need to identify what all your important assets are, what all assets you are running in your organization. By assets, I mean whatever infrastructure you are running, and you classify them into two different parts. One is critical, one is non-critical. So probably your whole transactional data would be something critical, and let's say some personalized data can be classified as a non-critical. So what you do over here is, since you are identifying your critical application and non-critical application, you will be saving a lot of over engineering and overspending as well. Next is RTO, RPO versus the cost. As we just saw, as the RTO and RPO goes down, the cost increases, right? So it is really important to understand that what your RTO and RPO is, and how much budget and cost constraints you are having, in order to define or in order to identify which strategy do you want to use. Again, while choosing the right DR strategy, uh, so choosing the right DR strategy majorly depends on your RTO, RPO versus the costing, because again the cost is a trade-off. What probably you can do is, if you are having really critical business, so in the first step you have identified your critical applications, right? So for critical applications, probably you can use multi-site DR strategy, and for those which are not the critical ones, you can go for backup and restore. So this way you can just segregate your uh, whole infrastructure into different types, and you can use multiple strategies as well in your whole organization. Defining clear roles and responsibilities over here means, when a disaster has been occurring, it's already a very chaotic situation. You do not want more mess around it, right? So it is very important to define clear roles and responsibilities for all the people who would be involved while doing the DR drills, while doing the restores, right? So definitely, maybe you can kind of create playbooks for the DR drills and follow them when the actual disaster is happening. Keeping it simple with minimal possible changes is again important, because we humans are very prone to errors. We'll do mistakes, right? So defining everything, defining all the manual change, like you can maybe identify what all manual changes will be required if such a scenario occurs, and then you can automate it as much as possible, so that minimum amount of manual intervention is needed when you are doing such scenarios. And again, you can have kind of checklists to adhere to policies, whatever the business has been defined and all that. So these are the major things that you'll need to think about and take care of while choosing the right DR strategy. These are some reference link I use for all this knowledge, and that's it. Thank you. Any questions?
So both the strategy or scaling different. So kind of one project suppose I have, can I use multiple strategy for the same project at the same time?
Yes, you can. So what we also generally do is, for example, we do have a lot of microservices, or let's say I have a lot of databases, right? For all the databases, I might not need active or real time sync. So I have divided my databases into different RPOs. So for example, for some of the transactional databases, I'll have my RPO as real time. Whereas the data which is regeneratable, for them maybe I'll have my RTO or RPO as 1 day or 2 day, because I know that data is regeneratable, right? So I can use multiple strategies within one project also, depending on your business needs. Anything else? Thank you.
Any more questions for Avani? Okay, give a round of applause.